Welcome to this tutorial where I'll be showing you how to conduct hypothesis testing for normal distribution. I'll be showing you how to structure your answers using 6 simple steps and helping you to really understand each step of the solution. So the first thing that's important to know is, what are we testing? Well, in hypothesis testing for normal distribution, we are testing the population mean to see how reliable this calculation is and whether it has changed or not from when it was calculated. Knowing that the population mean is calculated from a sample itself, a rather large one, there are several reasons why a population mean of a normal distribution can change or become unreliable. For example, if the number of people in London who tested positive for coronavirus is normally distributed, and you found in the year 2020 that the mean number of people who tested positive was, say, 5 million. Well, after a year, this could certainly change. The mean number that tests positive for coronavirus could decrease if a vaccine is found, or if we had more families generally staying at home, which would decrease the spread of the virus. On the other hand, it could increase if a lockdown is perhaps lifted too early, or if another variant, such as the South African variant, enters the population. So in hypothesis testing for normal distributions, we test whether the true mean has changed or not by taking a sample of the population, working out the sample mean, and seeing if this sample mean gives us enough evidence to accept or reject the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis assumes that the true mean is the same as the population mean, and our job is to work out whether to accept or reject the null hypothesis based on our findings of the sample mean. So in these questions, you'll be given the fact that a set of data is normally distributed and told the population mean is a certain value, mu. You'll also be given a sample mean, which comes from a sampling distribution of sample means. And this sample mean will suggest that the population mean is different from the one stated in the question. And in order to conduct a hypothesis test, what you'll need to do is compare the population mean, mu, with the sample mean, lowercase x bar, which comes from the sampling distribution of sample means. Another way you could look at it is comparing what is assumed to be the true mean, the assumption, with what actually happened, the observed value. So it's almost like a for and against argument. So let's take a look at an example where we'll be using p-values for our hypothesis test, which is just a way of proving whether or not to accept or reject the null hypothesis by using probabilities. And we'll look deeper into this a bit later on in the video. So in this question, we're given that the length of a bus journey from London to Luton is normally distributed with a mean of 68 minutes and standard deviation of 16 minutes. A test was carried out on 25 randomly selected bus journeys travelling from London to Luton, and the mean time was found to be 62 minutes. Test at the 5% significance level whether there is sufficient evidence that the mean time has decreased. So for all of these types of questions, I'm going to answer them by following a specific format, which I'll walk you through. You'll get a lot more comfortable with these with practice. So how do we set this up? Well, the first thing we need to do is define the null hypothesis, which we call H0. Now, since we're told in the question that the mean of this distribution is 68 minutes, well, this would be our null hypothesis, that the mu is equal to 68. Next, we need to define the alternate hypothesis and determine the tail of the test. So for this stage, the key thing to focus on is what you've been asked to test in the question. Here we've been asked to see if the mean time has decreased. So this keyword tells us that the alternate hypothesis, which we call H1, is that the mean mu is less than 68. And so therefore this is a one-tailed test. So we've seen many students writing different values here, but please note that when writing your null and alternate hypothesis, these values will always be the same as a population mean, okay? At this stage, we can also determine which tail to focus on. Since the observed value of 62 is less than 68, well, this tells us that we need to focus on the lower tail and calculate this green shaded area underneath the curve, which is the p-value that we're going to be working out later. Next, we need to define the population distribution. If we call x the bus journey times from London to Luton, then x is normally distributed with a mean of 68 and a variance of 16 squared. After this, we need to define the sampling distribution of sample means. From the previous tutorial, we should now know that this distribution, which we call capital X bar, would also be normally distributed with the same mean of 68 and a variance of the variance divided by n, where n is a sample size. In this case, it's 25. And therefore, the standard deviation will be the square root of this value, which is 16 over 5. And if you work this out in the calculator, you would get 3.2. Now we know that from this sampling distribution that we found the sample mean lowercase x bar to be equal to 62. Now in some books you might see that this value would also be given capital X bar, but I prefer to use a lowercase to represent the different random values that this distribution can take on. And one of them was the observed value of 62 minutes. Now this value is important for the next stage, which is to calculate the p-value. But before we do this, we need to know, well, what is a p-value? And how can it be useful for us in working out whether to accept or reject the null hypothesis? Well, the definition of a p-value is the probability of finding the observed value or something more extreme given the null hypothesis. Using this definition, we know that the observed value was 62 minutes. And given that the claim is that the mean is less than 68, anything more extreme than this value would be less than 62. So we need to work out the probability that x bar, the observed value, is less than or equal to 62 using the null hypothesis, which would be the area represented by this green shaded region under the normal curve. A couple of points to take note of is that it doesn't matter whether we use a strict or a non-strict inequality for these calculations. Because this is a normal distribution which is continuous, this means that there are infinitely many bus time values that could be observed, and so there is very little difference between the probabilities of x bar being less than 62 or less than or equal to 62. A handy trick to know which way round this sign is by using the same direction of the sign that you use in the alternate hypothesis. Okay, so let's go ahead and calculate the p-value using a calculator. So if you're using the Casio ClassWiz calculator, if you go to menu and then press 7 for distribution, because we're calculating the probability for an inequality, we need to go to normal CD by pressing 2. Since we're trying to calculate the probability for all values less than or equal to 62, we can choose a lower value of some really large negative number. I'm going to choose negative a million or something, and our upper value would be 62. The standard deviation of the sampling distribution was calculated to be 3.2. So let's just use 3.2, and the mean was 68. And this is precisely the part of the calculation where we use the null hypothesis to work out the p-value. Okay, notice that we're using 68, which was the value given by the null hypothesis. So working this out, we get a value of 0.03 and so on. And at this stage, I wouldn't round the value. So we've now worked out our p-value. But what does this mean, and how are we going to use it to determine whether or not to accept or reject the null hypothesis? Now, the first thing you have to do is determine whether the p-value we found is small or large. Now, whether a p-value is small or large purely depends on the significance level, which is just an arbitrary percentage that's given in the question. In this case, the significance level is 5%. So the p-value would be seen as small if it's less than 5% and large if it's greater than 5%. And since 0.03 and so on is less than 5% or 0.05, the p-value would be seen as small in this case. Now, given that the p-value is small, this means that it isn't very likely for the mean time to be less than or equal to 62 minutes. However, and this is the key part, we know that in real life this actually happened. When we took a sample, we got 62 minutes. And so you can say that this is an unreliable calculation. And so given the fact that we used the null hypothesis to work out this p-value, well, we can say that the null hypothesis isn't very reliable. The final stage to this test is choosing whether to accept or reject the null hypothesis with a conclusive statement. Now, since we found that the null hypothesis gave us an unreliable calculation, well, this is why we would reject the null hypothesis. And you need to finish these questions with a conclusive statement that relates to the context of the question. So seeing as we're rejecting the null hypothesis, we can say that there is sufficient or significant evidence to suggest that the mean bus journey time from London to Luton is less than 68 minutes, which agrees with the alternate hypothesis. Okay? So I hope you found that somewhat useful. Join us in the next tutorial where I'll be going through some more examples using the p-value method. Until then, keep up the good work and I'll see you soon. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, leave your comments down below and subscribe to this channel so you'll be the first to know when we release our next videos.